It is once again draft time for the Pittsburgh Pirates here in our franchise rebuild. I've got the board set up for the draft, and I talked about it a little bit in the last episode when we previewed the draft. I am a bit worried for this class that it might not be good, but at number 10, I'm targeting one of two players. Hopefully at least one of them will make it to us, and hopefully even both if we're lucky. But Arden Morales is, I think, the best hitter that I was able to identify scouting in this class. He just has a pretty well-rounded skill set offensively and has some good fielding ability. Doesn't have a great arm for the field and doesn't have speed, but he kind of has the ability to maybe do everything else. So that's just, I think, the best skill set available to us. Potentially at 10, should he make it. And if he doesn't, I'd like to take Cristobal Velasquez. I'm a little bit more confident he'll be there at 10. He's MLB ranked 29, and even when our scouts scouted him, he still wasn't a top 10 player. So I think there's a good chance he'll make it to us. You don't love the low walks per nine. What I like is that he has a very good chance at A potential. He's going to have really great stamina and really great break on his pitches. He also has a 5-pitch mix. So I think Velasquez is a pretty good pitching prospect here. I do think there's a little bit of a tier drop off before these next four players that I'd be willing to take at 10 as well. If neither of these two players make it, I'm hoping to take a guy like Gabriel DaCosta here, who isn't a perfect prospect by any means, but solid speed and stealing and solid contact and plate skills, including, will honestly be pretty dang good contact versus right-handed pitching. Not going to be much of a defender, though. Doesn't have any secondary positions, so not a prospect I'd be super excited to take, but I'd certainly be willing to take him. And then there's kind of this cluster of international pitchers that we scouted. This is most likely in order of where I'd take them, although I could be maybe convinced that Diego Alvarez is actually the best guy to take, honestly, over Colon. I just think the really high stamina pitcher would be intriguing. That's just something that we don't have. We don't have like the guy with the high 80s, low 90s stamina in our organization, which is why I'm kind of favoring that in this draft just to get some variance. After our first round pick, I think this is the year to try to take a swing on a reliever. We didn't get, I don't think, any insane relievers in this class. Like we know we had an insane reliever class last year. I was hoping to get another one this year, but the one guy I am interested in is Giancarlo Nivar, just because he has a 50% chance of being a potential, which is the one thing that we don't have right now in our bullpen. We have a lot of guys that are already in the 70s. Giancarlo Nivar will be below that, but he might have the highest potential of anyone that we have in the bullpen so far. Dustin Pittman isn't going to have very high potential, but he could hit for great power, which could be a nice thing to get outside of the first round in a draft class that's just really deficient when it comes to hitting prospects. And then Enrique Vina is another bullpen arm. These are kind of the only two bullpen arms that really intrigued me from what I scouted. There are probably some good ones that I didn't scout, no doubt, but might have just gotten unlucky there. But that's kind of what I'm thinking in the 37 and 48 picks. After that, it's a lot of discovery pitchers here. The best guy that we discovered by far is Barack Goral, who's a top 10 player on the board. Only a 3-pitch mix, though, so I'm hoping we can get him at our 86 pick. And then for our picks outside the top 100, we have a couple more guys that we discovered as pitchers, and then one guy. This was our best discovered hitter in this class. So very much so a fall from grace from the discovery that we've been able to get in previous draft classes. That's been something I've leaned on to get these great draft classes so far. Can we still get a good class without getting good discovery? Oh boy, it's time to find out. All right. The draft is underway. The Cubs hold the number 1 pick. Let's hope they pick somebody good. Again, I don't know if there's actually anybody good. Now, the one thing I didn't do is I didn't scout the top of the board, so there's a chance that Hirschstick is really good or Wiley Felton is really good. Lange isn't going to be, but Joey Lopez could be good. I didn't scout them, so maybe. I'm hoping they take one of those guys and they end up with a solid pick here. But let's get the draft underway. with the number 1 pick in the draft, they go with the one guy that is guaranteed to suck. Oh, geez. Come on, man. I wanted a sick prospect to enter the division. I don't even know, like I said, if it's available in this class, but dang it, they go with the one guy who is guaranteed to be terrible. Wiley Felton goes off the board next. I think he probably, out of those guys, has the best chance to be pretty dang good based off of my very limited information. But then it's Arlo Herstick here. So the top 3 MLB guys, they go in reverse order, but they do go off the board here at the start of this class, 3, 2, 1. 3 straight hitters in this class make it 4 as they go with Luis Peralta, who I thought was a little bit overrated. Don't know how good he's going to be. I don't think he's going to be a bad pick by any means, but somebody that wasn't in consideration at 10. The White Sox go with somebody who has a good chance to start in the 70s overall and have like B potential. So that's a decent looking pick. And then Joey Lopez. So a lot of the guys that I decided not to scout are going early. And so it turns out it was a good decision not to scout those guys. Casto was a guy that I had high hopes for. Unscouted, but he's just going to probably be mostly a defender so far. And then a pitcher that I did not scout goes number 8. So we are only 1 pick away, and all the guys that I want are still on the board. No way, dude. They didn't. No. We got sniped by the division rival Reds for the guy that I wanted the most in this class, in Arden Morales. We might not take a hitter at all in this class. He was the one that I wanted. We could still go with Gabriel DaCosta here if we wanted to not have a draft that doesn't have hitters. We've drafted a lot of good hitters already. There's not necessarily any glaring weaknesses in our position player future right now. I still would love to draft somebody, and Arden Morales was my guy. I'm secretly kind of happy because that means our division rivals did get a good player, even if it wasn't the guys that were literally picking first. But it comes time to us, and I think this makes my decision fairly clear. I like Cristobal Velasquez more than DaCosta for sure, but it comes to the part where our board has a lot more pitchers on it, including a guy like a top 8 player that's a pitcher discovery-wise. But I think Cristobal Velasquez just offers insanely good stamina and break, which is a fun combination, a good pitch mix, and a 50% chance at A potential. I'm thinking that's just a better bet right now than Gabriel DaCosta. So with the number 10 pick in the, what is this now, 2028, 2029? I don't even know. In our year 4 MLB draft, the Pittsburgh Pirates will select Cristobal Velasquez. 22 years old, but we're fine. We're getting to the part. I don't care about 18-year-olds because I want guys that are ready to contribute a little bit earlier. And DaCosta, I think, is probably going to be similar overall-wise, but I'm just a lot more confident in Velasquez's potential. We got a tighter range because he is older, and kind of like I was hinting at, we just don't have like a really high stamina guy. And so I thought it would be a fun thing to add. I thought he was a more unique prospect than a guy like DaCosta here. Haven't really had anybody that I loved go since. Nava was a guy that our scouts liked a decent bit. They get him exactly where he was ranked. DaCosta goes at 14. I think he has a chance to be one of the better hitters in the class, which is, that's saying something, dude, because I don't even love Gabriel DaCosta all that much. He got some scouting on his Rosado. I wasn't very impressed with it, I must say. When I got my first look at this draft class all the way back in week 1, I remember I was like, this class has some potential. You know, there's so many hitters at the top. And again, I didn't scout the top guys. So guys like Hernandez or Felton or Herstick or Lopez might have been really good, and I just didn't scout them because I didn't think they'd fall to me, which was correct. Purcell even could be a guy that I think could ultimately be a solid pick. Miguel Colon goes to the Padres here, the team that whooped us in the last episode. The Guardians get a pitcher that I liked here in Diego Alvarez. I think if I wasn't factoring stamina in so much, he might have been my favorite, although that low hits per 9 is really bad. You just got to hope he ends up with good pitching clutch to help offset that a little bit. So we have pick 37. And the guys that I'm hoping to fall are probably Nivar and Pittman. If I can get one of these guys, if I can get both, we're making real money here. Pittman is ranked 33rd on the MLB board. So, and when we scouted him, he stayed pretty much there. So there's a chance we get sniped by him by just a few picks here. John England was a guy that I considered scouting. I think he was like 21 years old. I probably would have, but it would have taken 2 weeks to scout him. But he's kind of that mold that I talked about in my scouting video where once you get past like the top 30-ish prospects, you're looking for maybe guys with 99 potential if you want actual legit upside, a max 99 potential, I should say. Nieves, kind of that same mold. But again, the 18-year-olds just take a lot more resources to scout because, in my opinion, I don't know why, but the first week of scouting can be kind of deceiving oftentimes. Bradford Cruz was a guy that was kind of interesting. He just hit more for power against lefties, which I think I've been focusing so much on being able to hit righties after the first couple of years of the franchise that I probably could use another lefty masher, honestly. Probably should have scouted him. But he didn't make it to us, so it's honestly actually probably good. I was pretty disappointed with Dennis Morcaldi's scouting progress that we got. So we're just a few picks away here. We have Nivar and Pittman still available. Who would we go? Pittman will allow us to have a hitter in this class. But one of the things I really wanted was a potential reliever. So what's more important? Somebody with some power but not much upside, or an A potential reliever? Dustin Pittman goes off the board. So that takes our choice away. So we just have to hope that Nivar does not get taken at 35 or 36. Please do not get taken. He's clearly the number one player on my board right now. Don't get sniped by a pick again. He does not get sniped. They go with Herbert Martins, who I almost put on my board, but decided not to because I thought he was unlikely to make it to 48, which is probably the first time I would have taken him, and he barely didn't make it to 37. With this pick, I think it's clear with Dustin Pittman off the board. Go for the guy. Very similar profiles here. Guys who have that 85 to 95 potential, so we're just betting on that they'll end up on the higher end of their ranges to get that A potential. And great strikeouts per 9. We have a lot of lefties from our bullpen arms. Might end up having to kind of shuffle that, maybe trade one of our lefties away now that we have another one, especially if Nivar does end up on the top end. If he ends up on the low end, he's like 60 overall with 87 potential. That's kind of a meh, right? You know what I mean? He needs to kind of end up on the high end of his ranges for this to feel good for us. If he's a 67 overall with 94 potential, now we're cooking with gas. That's the guy that you can view as being your closer in the long term. At this point, I'm just going to start simulating to my picks, see if we got sniped anywhere. Not really. Not really. So at this point, do we try to double up on the bullpen? Enrique Vina doesn't really have a chance to get a potential. He'd have to be at like actually the max end of his ranges, and I think he wouldn't be ranked 99 if he was. So at this point, I think you take the top 10 player on your board in Barack Garal, and we're hoping Vina's just there at pick 86, I believe it is. But only a 3-pitch mix here, but has a chance to throw it pretty hard, and you just get a top 10 player on your board with your third pick in the draft is always going to be good. He was the one chance we really had to nail a discovery pick in this class, I didn't want to risk losing it. We do have Enrique Viñas still on the board, so let's try and continue to add to our bullpen. Bullpen arms, you never know if they're going to actually play up to their ratings. And so just having a ton of ammunition there and seeing what sticks is going to be the move. I think he's likely going to honestly be like a 59, 60 overall, something like that, with mid to high B potential. So he's not going to be great, which is why I wanted to wait till 86. But here at pick 116, we have two of our discovery pitchers still on the board, and we also have our one discovery hitter still on the board. We have 3 picks left. Hopefully, if we can just end up picking these 3 players. Ryan Gramling, lefty here. Really similar to the pitchers that we took last year, but just a lefty instead of a righty. So at this point in the class, certainly we'll take him. Let's go ahead and take the hitter. Why not? He looks like he might be able to hit lefties decently well, and we didn't scout him, so we might end up even better than that 90-something rank. And then we have Kirk Edwards. I just want to take a look, like what else is even close. This guy is going to have better potential, but he's going to be like a terrible overall. I'm not really interested in that. I could be interested in taking another swing on a reliever, though. D'Angelo Wang. Awesome name. You know what? Just because his name is Wang, I'm taking him. D'Angelo Wang with our 6th round pick. Let's go. Before we go any further here into the video, I have to shout out Don Black for becoming a member on the channel. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate your contributions here, and I hope you enjoy the members-only content, including a video for this very draft that will be coming out in the next 24 hours or so, as well as the other members-only content that we have been dropping alongside Pirates franchise. But let's get back here to the video. Let's take a look at the All-Star voting. Since we actually have a good team now, we should be getting some good All-Star votes. And as you can see, we have 3 positions that we have the top vote getters in all of the National League here. Starting pitcher, Paul Skenes, coming in that 2nd spot. Carmen Majinski is number 1 among relief pitchers in terms of All-Star voting in his 51 innings thus far. At the catcher spot, we have David Yan. He's down to a 274 average. He's been a little bit cold as of late, but still having a really good season. Number 3 in catchers. We have nobody really in first base. That makes sense. We have Triolo in the 4th spot. At second base among All-Star vote getters, we have Jazz Chisholm, which we saw leading all votes at third base, and Albert Sweeney in 2nd place, which is pretty awesome. Billy Fink leads all shortstops in votes. Brian Reynolds leads all left fielders. We're not getting any votes really for the Joe Adele spot. And then Victor Robles is in 2nd place ahead of the likes of Ronald Acuna in terms of right field voting. So we have All-Stars all across the board here for this season, and that's just the result of being either the 1st or 2nd best team in the National League this year, depending on who you're talking to. In addition to that, we also have 2 players competing in the Home Run Derby in Brian Reynolds and Billy Fink. Now, I'm one that usually doesn't pay much attention, and it looks like I can't even see the results of the Home Run Derby, at least not from this screen. I can see if either of them won it, I think, because they get the award for it. But let's see. Oh, did they remove awards from this game? Or Billy Fink just doesn't have any yet. That would make sense. There you have it. So neither of them won it, but both of them participated in it. Wish they could see the results. But in terms of All-Star games, let's see. how our players did. Can I not view the box score? Am I tripping or something? I'm pressing A for options. It's just not giving me any options. Clearly, I never really do anything in the All-Star game, but it was a 1-0 All-Star game anyway, which is kind of wild. Seems like the pitching is taking over. Why can't I even see the box scores? I swear I've seen people look at the box scores of All-Star games before, but not letting me do it here unless I'm missing something. But certainly much more well represented in the All-Star and the Home Run Derby than we've been in seasons past. One potential issue we're running into with this class is I have some pretty low motivations to sign here. And so how to deal with that, in my opinion, is to leave a spot open. You just get so much more percentage. If you have multiple guys in the 30s, just like ultimately, if we don't sign Tate Holder, I'm not going to be crushed. But I really want to sign these two guys. They're top 20 players on our board right now. And so we'll go from 3 to 5 motivation, and we get just 2 to 1 to 3. It's only a 1% boost here, but we really need a bigger percentage boost here. And then Velasquez, I already offered, and he declined in this, but we signed the other players that were over 50. But leaving a spot open to get more boost, you could even argue doing this, but it's just a 1% boost here. So I think generally the best way to go is, if you're dealing with low interest, is to prioritize 2 rather than having all 3 open. You're just going to get up to 50% faster on those players doing this. You'll risk losing the guys that you're not prioritizing for sure, but you'll have a better chance of having multiple periods to offer these other guys, which is important because they won't always accept their first offer, of course, even once they hit 50%. We've gotten Tate Holder to 50%. He's the last guy available, but it is the deadline. So if he doesn't sign here, which he does, so the strategy ended up working out just perfectly fine. Probably offered him way too much money. I don't even know if he's good at all, but we got an entire draft class signed. It just took us the entire signing period to do it, at least for the last guy. Here is the class. Now that we have officially gotten all of the ratings, Cristobal Velasquez ends up with a 69 overall and a 94 potential. I think this is a really intriguing player to add to the rotation. I know we have a lot of pitchers in our organization already that have high upside, but I think he sets himself apart in his unique skill set of being a guy who can go very late into ball games. You know, we judge a lot of guys off the quality starts. Can you go 6? This guy can go 7 or even 8 when he's having a good game. And he's also got really high break on his pitches. His fastball isn't even all that slow either. It's, mid-90s, which is certainly good enough. And if we can just make sure that those walks per 9 are not a problem with Cristobal Velasquez, I think we could be talking about a really, really fun pitcher to have in the future, who ends up being, the 5 pitchers in our rotation in the next few years is certainly becoming a very highly competitive job. I think we have varying skill sets with Pete Good, with Thomas Coyle, with now Cristobal Velasquez, and of course the incumbents already there that are maybe supplying more of the velocity in that equation. But different skill sets. Cristobal Velasquez is also going to be a pretty good strikeout guy. More because of his breaking stuff than his overpowering stuff, whereas a lot of our strikeouts right now come from our overpowering stuff from the Jared Joneses and the Paul Skenes of the world. But I think this is a really fun pick, and I certainly am going to consider this a success at the 10th overall selection. Despite the age of 22, I don't think that quite matters at this point of a rebuild. Giancarlo Nivar ends up absolutely insane. We were taking the 50-50 shot that he would end up with a potential. He ended up way better, 98 potential. What the heck is that? That is now the 3rd straight year we've had either a 98 or a 99 potential. Yeah, Yeah, obviously is still at 37. He has 90 strikeouts per nine. I don't even care the fact that we are starting to get too many lefties in the bullpen. This guy's awesome. Wish he threw harder. Wish he maybe had a fourth pitch. But we're nitpicking here. This guy's an awesome player to get for us as a future closer. And the fact that he's 71 overall means he might not be all that far from getting the shot to be our closer either. Gural here is 67 overall with 88 potential. Unfortunately, terrible pitching clutch. Why you got to do this to me, man? That's why you got to take tons of swing at pitchers, because you never know when one's just going to get absolutely ruined by his pitching clutch rating. Barack Gural will join Jermaine Hodges in the pits of players that have been ruined by pitching clutch. Enrique Vigna ends up being a little bit worse than I had hoped for and anticipated. He still can strike some people out for sure, despite the fact that his fastball tops out at 90 miles an hour and he doesn't have anything crazy, I'd say. His break's fine, but he'll be in our bullpen. You always need arms there. Like I said, just taking swings, which is kind of what we did in this class. Ryan Gramling here, I think, is a solid player. It's going to be hard for, I think, him to separate himself in a starting pitching rotation that continues to get more and more competitive, but certainly a solid player, and you always like having some lefty options for sure. Tate Holder, this is the top-rated guy that our Discovery Scout found at hitters. Don't get me wrong, I'm not talking crap on our Discovery Scout because he's been so incredibly awesome for us up to this point in the franchise. This was just not the class. I mean, you got one good pitcher, or I guess technically two because Gramling's there too, but the best pitcher has 27 pitching clutch, and this is the best hitter. I mean, just not the year for Discovery. And then D'Angelo Wang, another guy with terrible pitching clutch, despite the fact that his strength is his hits per nine. I don't mind. I mean, I don't like it that they hide pitching clutch for sure, but you can't have archetypes like this. And Jermaine Hodges last year, this is such a terrible archetype, man. Don't make somebody have an awesome strength that gets completely undermined by a weakness. Not that he was really going to be all that great anyway with 72 potential, but this is more of an extension of my Jermaine Hodges rant from last year as we get a less important player that has pretty much the exact same shaftness in his ratings. But, we like to not only gauge our draft class based on the overalls and potentials, but are there players that we missed? Did our division rivals pick up anybody interesting? Let's go ahead and take a look at the draft class as a whole around the league. Johnny Wood here by the Cardinals doesn't have great potential, but he is already coming in at a 71 overall. Going to have some solid defense, some solid power, but not really the potential you want to improve on that. I like the starting skill set, though, for sure. We'll see what he can do in that 8 overall gap that he has until he reaches his potential. Oscar Cabrera was a guy that was on our board. Knew that he wasn't going to have great stamina, but still some things to love, maybe as a long-term reliever down the road. They also drafted Dustin Pittman, who ends up having 81 power. So this has kind of been myth-busting. One of the things I've said, that the game just doesn't really generate 80 power. This is probably the second player, or maybe the third, that I've seen that's not a generational player that has power in the 80s. So he is certainly a rare type of breed. I had him on my board. He's better than I thought he was going to be. I thought he was going to be maybe more of a 70 overall with 75 potential, somewhere in that range. Would have been awesome to have him, but obviously I'm not sad that we ended up with Giancarlo Nivar instead. But Dustin Pittman, this top two, really solid job here by Arizona at the start of this class. Willie Fenton was the 3rd overall pick, 64 overall, 84 potential. Solid stuff here as a contact hitter against left-handed pitching. I don't know how much more he's giving you than that. They got some high overalls on this squad, but they just aren't really going to improve with these players down the board. Not a great draft for the Dodgers here. Their highest overall was 77 with Dennis Marcaldi, who we called out as being a disappointment. Miguel Colon was a guy that I was considering, another high stamina pitcher. I think when you think of the high stamina archetype, the two that were available, especially with Miguel Colon having some pretty questionable durability. All of our guys had solid durability at pitching, by the way. I think I forgot to show that, but they're all at least 60 plus. So I think we certainly got the better there. We made the right choice. Drew Finley, solid starting overall with a 77 potential. You get Luis Peralta here, who was a guy that I thought was a little bit disappointing. 61 overall, 82 potential. Scouted him and was hopeful, but yeah, I think that was a good job identifying him as somebody we wouldn't want. He didn't make it to us anyway, but wasn't really on my board either way. Orioles need to do a better job signing their picks, I guess, but they also just didn't have great luck with their picks. So I don't know how much that might have even helped them. Artie Purcell, great speed, but probably not what you're looking for there in a first-round pick. Gabriel DaCosta ends up 68 overall with 88 potential. I think this would have been a solid pick at 10 for sure. And if he wanted to have a draft class that wasn't completely devoid of hitters, especially his heat map against lefties looks really solid. I still think Cristobal Velasquez is better than a second baseman only who doesn't play great defense, but DaCosta is certainly a great pick by the Rays considering the other picks we've seen in this draft class so far. I mean, he's been the best hitter we've seen. And I don't think it's been really all that close yet, unless you just really love the power of Pittman, but just the 80 potential. It's probably been those two guys that stand out as good hitters so far. Joey Lopez is one of the higher rated players in the class. Okay, but not great. This draft class just wasn't really all that good. Steven Hernandez is a solid pick for sure as an offensive focused player with 82 potential. But I mean, we might be talking about him as like the third best hitter I've seen so far. It's just not been all that impressive of a draft class. Diego Alvarez was certainly in the mix for me. His hits per nine are quite worrying, but his pitching clutch is in a solid spot to help mitigate that a little bit. So solid pick there. Still haven't seen any picks and I'm like, wow, this is an awesome player. You know what I mean? But it was just one of those glasses, I think. The more that we're scrolling through it, I think we made the most of maybe a pretty bad draft class. Paul Slade's a solid prospect for sure. He has great hits per nine. His pitching clutch is lower, but it's not so low that it kind of ruins him. I'm fine with more of this. Not saying pitching clutch needs to kind of match hits per nine, but you can't have like 70 in one and then 20 in the other. You know, kind of just ruins it. Solid potential here for Escobar. Okay, we're seeing some potential here in the Mariners draft. 59 overall is not great, but 88 potential. They didn't sign Pete Rivas, so we'll never know. But these guys have good potential, but they're terrible right now, so who knows if they should actually get credit here. So the Braves got a 71 overall with 81 potential. Probably should have been a guy that I scouted, but he didn't make it to our second round pick anyway, so it wouldn't have really mattered. They got good early contributors with their first couple of picks, and they got a 99 overall, 99 potential. Sorry, 99 overall would be insane. 99 potential catcher, although he is just a 48 overall. So we'll see if he ever gets remotely close to that. Not really digging the Mets draft. John England ends up being solid. 57 overall, 88 potential. Not bad. Probably, maybe one of the 10 best picks in this class. I don't know. I have to go through and actually rank them. TJ Davino's solid. This is the guy that the Cubs took number 1 overall. This is the number 1 overall pick. We knew he was going to be terrible. I was honestly hoping he'd at least be like a 74 overall with 75 potential. 67 with 68 is terrible. Robert Haas is a better selection, but whoa. Jeez. I actually don't know if that's true. His ratings are all over the place. My goodness. Very defined in his strengths and weaknesses, that's for sure. And the thing he's leaning on is home runs per nine, which I'm like, I don't know if that's what I want to be my one strength. Oh, geez, Artem Morales is great. Finally, we found an awesome player. He's the guy I wanted, and I was right. I think the guys that said were the two guys I was targeting at 10 might actually be the two best players in the class. In fact, I'm pretty confident they will because we only have like one more team and then nobody on the Brewers is all that great. So I feel a lot better now that I've seen this draft class than I did going into it. I thought for sure there was a player or two that I missed because I didn't feel great. It turns out Morales was better than I thought. His scouting potential here is accurate, but ours has his maximum actual potential at 95. It was 96. So despite the fact that I had 98 efficiency and 98 position players, our scout didn't totally accurately scout this guy. He's awesome. I'm glad to have a sick prospect in the division, especially a team that's young like the Reds, who I think might be good competition for us if they ever decide to spend $1 in free agency. Artem Morales is the best player in this class, for sure. No doubt about it. He went off the board one pick ahead of us. But there you have it. That's the draft class. I think we had the best draft in the league. Still, I would have loved it even better. As much as I love Cristobal Velasquez, I would have loved Artem Morales here even better. But I'm not sad at all with these first two picks. And then I think we took right swings here. It's just maybe where we would usually get some great discovery. We got some okay discovery and some terrible discovery. But that was just the reality of a discovery-starved draft class, that it wasn't going to have quite the depth that we were probably going to end up. I was thinking 2 to 3 contributors from this class. We got 2 with our first 2 picks. But let me know what you thought of this draft class, if you would have made any different decisions along the way. And drop a like on the video if you did enjoy it. We're going to continue on with this Pirates season, getting back to some actual gameplay, which has been so fun for us here in Season 4 in the next episode. And I will see you then. Let's go Bucks.